on when and where you are watching this stream from. Last week we did a little Stellaris in the Star Trek New Horizons mod, so seemed fun to maybe do a little Stellaris, basic Stellaris, and do it as Project Liberal itself. So I've gone ahead and created a custom Project Liberal. I don't know, what's the right term in Stellaris? Nation? Faction? Space Empire? I don't know. But we've created Project Liberal inside Stellaris. I've done my best to approximate our founder, Josh Eckel. I hope Josh sees and appreciates that. We are, of course, going to be democratic, a beacon of liberty, and a crowdsourced community. Very true. And I have not had a chance to play much in Stellaris with these crowdsourcing mechanics, so that should be interesting to dive into. We're egalitarian, xenophilic, and of course very pro-market and materialist. So we will probably keep this and not alter it at all during playthrough. We're organic, of course. I've got all of this horrific flesh that I'm trapped within. Thrifty, because we do a lot with a little. Talented and quick learners should speak for themselves. And as a fairly new org with a lot of members who are fairly young, I think the nascent stage trait is a great offset. So some of our new population are going to need to incubate a little while before they can be full and productive members of our space Project Liberal here. So we'll go ahead and launch into it. So I'm going to start this fresh from a completely new game, which I know is not what I did last time, but should be good. We're using basic settings. I'm a wimp, so we're not giving the AI any buffs right off the bat. We are allowing 2 AI opponents to start with an advanced start, and I've juiced up the number of AI empires. Haven't really changed anything else in the basic settings. All of the precursor civilizations are in, and we'll do a spiral galaxy because I started us on Earth, of course. The well-known home of Project Liberal is, of course, the planet Earth. So that is where we're going to be starting out. So I have a relatively large number of hours in Stellaris generally, but I feel like there is so much content in the game at this point, no matter how frequently you play it. There's probably aspects of it that you haven't bumped into, and one of those for me is definitely the crowdsourcing thing. I don't know that I have ever played crowdsourcing at any point in time, so we'll see how that goes. So here at Project Liberal, our prosperous unification, of course, in the eons since the first primitive liberal communities took shape in the meadows and forests of Earth, our civilization has spread and prospered, no doubt. And then we hurtled ourselves into space and discovered cool spacey things. So go ahead and do, like most Paradox Interactive games, spend the first several minutes paused as we set everything up. But it looks like we're, we're a little bit further in towards the center of the galaxy than I think Earth actually is. But we're pretty close to a real Earth-like starting position, which is always fun to see. Also have a couple of planets floating around that are going to be worth checking out. Look like not the most hospitable ones, but we'll give it a go. So, as usual with these streams, we might be joined by some of our Project Liberal volunteers. If not, you will get the pleasure of me gaming and monologuing for the next couple of hours. If you want to join in on these playthroughs and these regular streams, a great way to do that, well, first and foremost, the easiest way to do that is throw a message in the chat, and I'll see it if you're here watching live. But if you want to join and participate in the conversation in a really robust way, check out Project Liberal's Discord channel. Join that Discord community and reach out to us and offer to volunteer. It's all Project Liberal volunteers that have the opportunity to pop into voice chat with us when we stream. We have volunteers that do a ton of great things that help us produce content, that are part of our social media team. We have volunteers that are working on policy questions with our policy team, volunteers that help us with fundraising and operational side of things. If you're more of a behind the scenes kind of person, We have volunteers that write for our Substack. We've got all kinds of great volunteer energy that helps Project Liberal stay afloat as a small organization. We do a lot with very little funding, and so we really value our volunteers and appreciate it. So if you're interested in joining those ranks, feel free to pop onto our Discord and let us know, and then maybe jump onto a stream if you're so inclined. All right, we've got our initial technology choices that I've got to make. I really feel like this is a bit of a whammy, but maybe we'll go for worker efficiency. I always love to be able to get the tech buildings, because I think it's kind of a rule of 4X games that when you can research more research, you research more research, right? I already started us off building a mining station. Let's go ahead and investigate out here. It's not really clear whether we have good choke points or anything yet, so we'll just go get that started. Looking at our planet here. Oh, I think this is part of those mechanics with crowdsourcing, is we get factions super early that start producing technology for us. So we've got an Academy of Scientific Betterment, an alien equality movement, and a full enfranchisement network. There's really nobody in the alien equality movement yet, which I guess makes a little sense since we haven't encountered aliens yet. But those all seem like very laudable liberal causes, so we're gonna try to keep them all fairly happy throughout our playthrough here, and make sure. Yeah, see, they want new contact, benevolent subjugation policy. We can probably go ahead and just do that and get some extra happiness here as well. I mean, because of course we're going to be benevolent. So diplomatic stance, I think we can stay expansionist just through this exploration phase. Then we're going to live our values a little bit more. And part of that is not unrestricted wars. I think we can leave open the option to liberate the oppressed here, but let's... and then subjugation terms, of course, anybody that comes under our umbrella, we want to be very benevolent with them. I think unless our factions get upset about any of this stuff, we should maybe just leave it as is for now. Want to make sure purge is prohibited, slavery is prohibited. Of course, that's all good. Population control is prohibited. We're going to protect pre-sapient species. I think, yeah, that's good for now. Economic policy, mixed economy, like that. I'm not seeing any refugee policy yet, so maybe we haven't hit the appropriate prerequisite, but when we do, we want to make sure that that's open and available as well. We're going to be very open borders here with Project Liberal and Stellaris. So we've got our faction
Construction complete.
set up. Oh, there's the other faction hitting. Okay, so alien equality is there and ready for us. Construction ship. Let's get this other mining station operational. Discovery of alien life. Well, there it is. That didn't take long. Not hearing any audio. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Is that game audio that you're not hearing, or is that voice audio as well? If you can't hear me, I don't suppose you can answer that question, but let's do this. We probably had the master pretty far down with some of the previous conversation that we were having. When you have folks on and you're having back and forth conversation, all the little bleeps and bloops tend to get in the way. So let's see if that's a little bit better with game audio. You can just let me know at some point in the chat. Let's see what we want here. Zero-G Labs, the extra research points. I think maybe the Zero-G Laboratories, but all of those are good options. Man, when you play as a liberal, life is good. So we've got some fun things going on at Project Liberal right now. I guess I can talk about as we just kind of finish the basic setup and do our initial exploration here. I do think I'm going to start off with expansion.
Council agenda
mostly for
available.
the population growth, but then to make it a little cheaper to grab these surrounding systems. So we've been working on a project. The Earthbound Project Liberal, non-space Project Liberal, has been working on something called our on-ramp to liberalism, which
System
has
survey.
gone really well. Basically, it is to take the reach and engagement that all of our social media outlets have and build a thriving, interconnected community around liberal identity, and then help give that community access to broader stuff in the liberalism space. So, events like the Liberalism Conference hosted by ISMA, the Institute for the Study of Modern Authoritarianism, uh, will have quite a presence at their conference that's coming up next month. We're working with other organizations to make sure that we have the opportunity to
Construction
get in
complete.
places where liberals are gathered and to promote those out to our community and provide incentives for our community to go, discounted registrations, things like that. So that has been great. It's been wonderful
Council
to see this
agenda ready.
community sort of thrive and grow as we have built it out. Hopefully, Space Project Liberal will meet the same fate as we kind of grow here. That initial agenda is done. I always feel like this is quite the dilemma. Do I want to just max utility for those early, unlocks, or rush to get this extra council spot so somebody can start building up their own experience as a minister? I think I'm going to go Unity just because this mechanic with the factions on crowdsourcing means you're not getting the bonus Unity here. So we kind of do need to get Unity from somewhere. I might do a point into the mining just to get more minerals online. I feel like minerals are
Construction
often
complete.
early in the game, where you just never quite have enough of them. Just like I don't quite have enough of them to build both of those research stations right now. All right, our head of research has leveled up. I think early survey speed is pretty good. Oh, but given that they're the head of research, maybe we should do the council trait. I think that's probably wise. And then early influence cost reduction. So you can let me know there, the Gagus, if the audio is better. I'm seeing levels on my end, so hopefully that's
anomaly found.
Seeing come through on yours as well. Let's see here. Another leader level up. Minister of State. We'll just throw the council trait on him without thinking too hard about it. I think another interesting point of consideration is whether to research anomalies when your science ship discovers them right away and is sitting at them, or whether to move on and get a big expanse surveyed and claimed and then come back and clean them up. I kind of bounce between those two viewpoints. I'm not sure which one is exactly correct, but I don't know that we want to play a particularly wide game with this. I think we're fine being relatively small in stature, so we're going to go ahead and put the research in when we can. Defense platforms or agenda speed, I guess in the vein of playing a little bit tall, I'll take the defensive bump. But yeah, so it's been good. It's been great. You know, my involvement with Project Liberal on a volunteer basis myself has gone back the past several years, and I've been on staff as the executive director for the foundation now since the beginning, since January 1. And it's been nice to see Project Liberal's nonprofit foundation grow and be able to support a lot of what the organization's doing. So that's been really good, and I'm appreciative to any of you who are watching this who are supporters of the foundation. It's gone well. All right, so I got the initial influence cost. I think rushing down to pop growth is what I want to do now. I know these streams can sometimes be a little politics heavy. I think this will probably be more of a gaming one, unless someone wants to pop in and join or throw a question in chat. I'm happy to talk current events, but I mean, let's be honest. Enough people talk current event stuff at us every day anyways. It can be daunting. part of the point is
Research
for it to be
complete.
daunting, right? That's the sort of flood the zone strategy of just making people so fatigued with outrage after outrage that they don't really have the bandwidth to care about everything that's going wrong all at the same time. And there's a human capacity that gets exhausted. And so
Construction complete.
I'm always happy to have a little escapism here. I do want to unlock the slums. Shame on me for not doing that as soon as we had the cash for it. I've been letting energy credits roll way too high here, but that's okay. You didn't... If you're watching this, you're not watching it for elite gaming, I don't think. I think you're watching it to hang out and have a good
Blocker
time.
cleared.
All right, we've got that unlocked. Where do we want to go next? I think planetary unification for the little bit of unity boost is probably good. We're doing
Blocker cleared.
okay on the rate at which we're unlocking traditions. Faction bonuses, but we seem to be... All right, let's find out more there. That's the only contact we currently have. And we're getting the
Situation log updated.
Phoenician Traders event. All right, in the Alpha Centauri system is a ruined world, apparently the remnant of an empire lost to antiquity. Subterranean structures. All right. Archaeological dig site. So we're going to hopefully make some decent progress towards excavating all of those once we get our initial sort of area surveyed. Pop growth, I think, is just so strong in Stellaris these days. Ever since they put in logistical growth for pops, I just really think it's great to
research complete.
To just get some pop growth.
System
early.
survey
You know,
complete.
Your pops here are going to grow towards a logistical ceiling on the planet itself, and it's the more you can juice that, the better. It has really improved performance that populations don't just exponentially explode. It's also, I think, good for realism. I said earlier, if we can research more research, we should do it. So I'm going to stick with that for now. Get our science ship out of here. Construction, let's take that. I also am super late in building an extra science ship, so I'm going to build an extra 2. That's how it goes, right? You forget to do something, so you just do it twice as hard later. Someone is trying to establish contact with us. We hear the rush of flowing liquid in the distance, the squawking and wing flapping of tiny avians taking flight. Transmission seems to be coming from a thriving biome. I'm not sure that I've particularly seen this event. Hello? 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 Must have been a telemarketing call. All right. Don't you hate that? You pick up the phone and no one's there. And then you wait. If you wait long enough, you can hear the little click from the auto dialer, and then you're just connected through to background noise from a call center or something. All right. Let's see what we've got here. This is sadly being blocked by the Discord overlay. But so we want scientists just for the science ships. These are probably not going to be government officials, so we can get anomaly discovery chance is probably where it's at. So we're going to hook you up, and let's send you out this way. And then we will do discovery chance again and send you out this way. I don't mind splitting them up. Sometimes I keep the ships together.
Construction
so
complete.
Out systems quickly. Oh, hey, telemarketing calls back. Attempting to contact us again. Sound of the biome from earlier. Still nobody is present. All right, let's find
Situation
out.
log updated.
Star 69, you know, the caller ID. Let's find out where they are. Research that. All right. So that is interesting. That's not an event chain that I have seen often. Maybe I've seen it once. I don't know, but that's not one that I recall getting a lot in my early playthroughs. So we got a pretty nice world here. Oh, lovely fuming bog. Never mind. So they've already got the reflecting pool built for any monuments that we want to place on this world. Fuming bog is already in place. Get some nice, robust algae blooms. Okay. Yep. Alpha Centauri Prime is fine. It's the only planet in the
Research
system
complete.
to colonize, so that's cool. Stick with investigating as we go. And what do we want to do here? So given our capabilities, I do think we're going to want some trade hubs. So we're going to go in on some trade early. Looks like there's a pre-sapient species that we've discovered over here. Be a long time before we have to worry about colonizing that. I am seeing maybe a 3 choke point situation, assuming that that's kind of
Special
a cul-de-sac.
project complete.
Ah, the source of the transmissions. Familiar sounds of the biome. Warm greetings, Liberal. We've been expecting you. Pardon the pretense, but I had to know how curious you were. Now let me ask you something. How do you value life? Okay, well these are going to be a great series of questions. Who are you? Very well. Allow me to introduce myself. He's Azarin. But until you answer my question, I'll say no more. Now tell me, what value do you ascribe to life? Well, I want to say that I ascribe a tremendous value to life, but since that's not an option, I suppose we'll ask the trick question. At last, a people with more than conquest on their mind. I share your sentiment. All life holds infinite potential. Now allow me to explain my reason for contacting you. Go on. He's a former astrobiologist turned scholar of astro creation. It's a worthwhile pursuit. But first a challenge. I'd like to send you a gift of sorts to see if you're able to neutralize it. That's probably not a great thing. All right.
Situation log updated.
Let's see what we've got here. This is, okay. This is just going to be an investment in society technology, which, I'm okay investing right now. Let's take the 3 years and just get that done. I have seen the event a couple of times, so if I motor through it a little quickly, that's why. But it's not one that I've gotten often, honestly. Maybe that's just bad, Whose lie thick? A toxic wasteland over here. That's probably not great. Facilities alien and mysterious, but could provide us with ample study material. I do like the curiosity of our scientific endeavors here as they explore out. We're going to add quite a bit of research to that, making that a really good spot for us to get around to. I think empire size has not been a problem at all, early in the game, so we'll go ahead and
Anomaly found.
the other one. And we'll clean up the one after that afterwards. All right. So yeah, it's I hope you're enjoying this. That it's fun to do a little Stellaris and talk a little Project Liberal and go from there. We've definitely got some exciting things on the horizon. I see Max has popped in on the Discord overlay. Hi, Max.
I have. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. I was working and saw you are streaming Stellaris. So I was like, hey, I just have to drop in.
Hey, yeah, no, thanks for dropping in. I have set up Project Liberal in Stellaris, so we're role playing ourselves here today, and
Cool.
And gonna go from there. You can tell me how good a job you thought I did with the limited tools capturing Josh Eccles' likeness.
The folding up of the mustache, it's
Yeah, it's the only one they give you on that. It's a little cartoon, mustache twirler, but we'll go with it. I think it suits him.
yeah, it's pretty close.
An
So
alien
we're
empire has
taking the
established
more human
communications.
option on all of the decisions that it presents us. So I know one of the things that I was talking about many of the ways that Project Liberal has grown, that the Discord community has grown, and all of that sort of stuff. Max, folks may know you from our Project Liberal podcast. I don't know if we're ready to put specifics behind anything, but I do know that there's movement on the podcast front that's very exciting and positive, and that we're looking to have some interesting conversations coming up. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think it's been dormant, as everybody knows, for at least on my end for some time. But yeah, we were talking about how we might. I don't want to say fully re-envision it. I think it's going to be in many ways have the soul and the spirit that it had before, but with more time and effort and production values and all the rest put into it, I think it could be pretty good. Something really special that we can hopefully get to producing in the coming weeks or months.
Yeah, one of the things that I've co-hosted a couple of the old ones with you, and I enjoy the prep conversations almost as much as the podcast conversations themselves. It's always wonderful to just kind of dig into those topics and dig into the backgrounds of the guests and kind of brainstorm what good conversations
Anomaly
we can
found.
have. And I feel like you and I, Max, oftentimes end up going down a rabbit hole of really good conversation when we do that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think one of the things a lot of people that do podcasts, certainly podcasts on more, let's just say, like deeper topics, I think one of the big benefits is just the opportunity to get a chance to like have an excuse to dig really deeply into important topics and spend a few hours a week or every other week delving into something that you may otherwise give yourself all kinds of excuses for why you don't have time to read that book or that long essay, or you can't really dig into this topic. You have so many other things going on. But when you know that you are producing something and you want it to be valuable to your listeners and you want to be on the spot with the person you're having a conversation with, it creates a pressure that I think is really positive, really good. At least some of us, right? Some of us benefit from that pressure, myself included. So yeah, so I find it a very positive thing.
Yeah, well, and it's nice, I know a little bit behind the scenes of what we're talking about, and I think we'll have a really diverse range of conversations when the podcast comes back, and that's always, I think, a really healthy and good thing to have some positive incentive, like you said, that positive pressure to push yourself into. We oftentimes fall into pretty easy conversations when it's just,
Situation log
the
updated.
same topic, the same in group, the same interest that we have, and I find it very interesting to have to come at it from a new direction of prepping for what somebody else is bringing to the table. Who's oftentimes themselves having the same conversation over and over and over again. So being able to stretch it in different areas is, I think, really interesting and something that provides a real value to everyone involved.
I think it exercises different muscles when you have to ask yourself, how would a person who's not as intimately familiar with the material because they haven't read the book or they haven't delved into this stuff for a while, how would they process what you're talking about? How would they interpret whatever your interlocutor is saying in a particular conversation? And I think having that incentive, like you said, it's something that is not, we don't do it quite as often when we're just talking to each other. But when we know we're going to be presenting this material to people that we're not as familiar with on the internet, we really have to expand our minds and put ourselves in the shoes of people who think maybe not completely orthogonally different to us, because whatever, that's a level of crazy that we don't need to, but people who are kind of on our wavelength or spectrum, but coming from very different priors.
Situation log
And I think that to me is very helpful. It's very instructive, right? You don't you what does they say? You don't really know something until you can like explain it very well to all kinds of different people.
Right.
So I think yeah, I think that's huge.
There's like the I'm sure gosh, what channel is it? Maybe you'll be more familiar with it than I am, but that does the sort of like five levels of, and we'll have like nuclear physicists come on and explain nuclear physics to like a kindergartner, to like a graduating high schooler, to a white collar adult, to a college grad student, and then like to a peer, right?
Yep.
And they'll have the same conversation at the different levels. It's sort of like those. I can't remember exactly who did it. It would be somebody like a Wired, or one of those established brands that has a YouTube presence. But it was an interesting series
Yeah.
for a time.
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, what was that? What was that one called? I've seen a bunch of those. Yeah, they're pretty popular on YouTube. You know what I find is that you can, of course, probably a lot of people know this, but since there's so many topics that we would love to delve into in a similar fashion, use AI.
Yeah.
You know, pull up Claude and tell it, tell me this, starting from the first principles, lowest level, and then you build up and you build up with AI, and that's yeah,
Special
it's
project
it's
complete.
incredible the kind of stuff that we can learn and accomplish.
You can almost do the inverse with AI, and I find that really useful, which is you can assign AI a role to play, a hat to wear, and then have it explain the thing back to you. So, you know, uh, you are a peer. Discuss this with me, or you are an expert in microbiology. Answer these questions, or you are an instructor. Instructing novice students on this topic. Walk me through this, and you can
Yep.
you can tell AI what role you want it to play, what level you want it to come at you with. And I find doing that at three or four different levels on a question sometimes reveals some very interesting things, where it's now talk to me, now you are a PhD speaking above my head about this topic. Talk over my head about it for, five paragraphs. And
Yep.
that can be really interesting to explore.
Yeah, I think the idea of using AI to formulate numerous different perspectives on a given problem, and then you can see those different perspectives and adjudicate between them, or synthesize them, is is something that I think has been underexplored so far in AI. But we'll get there. We're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I do worry there's a lot of sense of backlash about AI, especially politically. We engage in a lot of political
Incoming
spaces,
transmission.
and you see a lot of this sort of like populist grassroots AI sentiment. Um,
Yeah.
it seems like progress is, I mean, at the risk of sounding, a little bit arrogant, it seems like progress on AI doesn't care about politics. It's progress is going to occur. But what is the like that? Does AI have a PR problem that's going to get in the way of what the AI future could look like?
I think humans have um, uh, uh, a problem with change, generally speaking, and change that happens too quickly. It almost doesn't matter what kind of change it is, societally, feels scary, and I don't know that that's easily solved, because we are moving into a time when it seems like change is happening more and more quickly, especially now with the advent of the things that we're talking about. So I think that I don't see an easy solution to this problem. I think you do need to. I think there's a number of people who kind of come up into it with a more optimistic, positive, constructive attitude, and sort of embrace the idea of change. So they you know, their
System
first
survey
instinct
complete.
is change is not a bad thing, but there's a lot of people who that's not their first instinct. And so, I mean, if you asked, you know, I think we're already seeing the kind of earliest steps into the idea that the major fracture point in the future is not necessarily going to be around a lot of the things that have been the classic fracturing points in the past, but it's going to be kind of a return to a sort of, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, but a Luddite side and the non-Luddite side. And I think it's going to lead to a rejiggering of parties and political positions in the coming years. And I don't think that's necessarily for the best, but I do think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to map pretty cleanly onto what I've seen for a while now be the real dividing line of our current political realignment, which is this sort of like populist, anti-intellectual, um, you know, you can't tell me what to do. Don't make me feel driven, fear-driven, more insular tendency versus a more intellectual, but also maybe a little bit more technocratic, but just like the tendency to say, let's put competent people in competent places, embrace these systems that work, tend to embrace liberal values socially because they work, tend to embrace market values because they work, insulate to some extent the function, like the good functioning of government from the sort of broader public sentiment that, you know, sometimes the masses call out for something that's not particularly effective or good. And so
Construction complete.
it seems to me you've got that kind of dividing line where you've sort of got institutionalists on one side and kind of these populist iconoclasts on the other. Um, you know, on one hand, fighting to kind of smash the system up because they don't like it, and on the other hand, sort of trying to say, no, we should make the system better, but our institutions are there for a reason and we can make these things work. Um, it's very easy for me to map onto that kind of what you were and this very and on the other, because I'll tell you, it's not my natural instinct to say, wow, radical change at this point in my life is just fantastic. Like all the AI stuff for me, my first reaction to that is, oh gosh, this is going to be the first big technical innovation that really
Construction
loses me,
complete.
right? That I'm not on the move, and that, like, oh, I'm watching myself get left behind in real time was sort of my first reaction to it. And I've had to intellectually force myself to say, A, I don't have to be left behind. I can push myself into places where I am forcing myself to understand the technology, but also then
Construction
B,
complete.
that that know that this radical change can still be very, very good, and even if it doesn't feel good for me, it's good overall for society. And that's sort of an intellectual position that I can take, no matter what it feels like, kind of at the gut level.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it. It reminds me of
Council agenda
my
complete.
position. Bit of a tangent, but it reminds me of my position on housing and the YIMBY stuff. I mean, somebody, you know, it's like I went to a kind of a city hall meeting thing here in Austin. It was 6 months ago or a year ago,
System
and
survey
I made
complete.
the argument that. Like a lot of people were coming up and making arguments about the value of YIMBY stuff, but they were all renters and things like that. And I'm a homeowner, and I came up and I said, yeah, you know, yes, my own, you know, property value or such may actually be better served in the short run by a bunch of NIMBY protectionism, but in the long run, that is not the case because YIMBY stuff, you know, the YIMBY approach ends up creating a lot more economic gains for the local population in the long run. And so I'm going to benefit from that. We're all going to benefit from that. And frankly, I'd also like to live in a world with more interesting people around, with more interesting stuff going on. And I'd rather derive value from that than sit there looking at my, like the numbers on Redfin telling me what my property value is. Oh, look at that, it's up another 5%.
Right.
Like that doesn't matter so much. I'm looking at the broader picture. So I think in AI it's something similar, right? So even if somebody's like, well, I don't know exactly how it's going to affect me, or like, how am I going to be able to keep up as much or not keep up? But I think in the long run, it is going to create an enormous amount of value for people and society and civilization and the future of humanity. And so I'm excited about embracing it, even though we may not be able to see exactly all the twists and turns it's going to be engaged in the short run.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree, and actually, I find myself in a very similar
has
position
established
with the NIMBY
communications.
movement. I'm a homeowner out here in traditional American suburban sprawl territory, where our community is very, very NIMBY.
Construction
and in
complete.
the short run, like you said, the home value has become
Anomaly
this
found.
thing to prize, right? And has certainly increased over the last 10 years, unambiguously. We have some not nice neighbors, it would seem, in the game. But but I can do the thought experiment, right? Like my little suburban home with your traditional white picket fence suburban sprawl X. And if we're protectionist and we keep supply restricted over the next 10 years, then maybe what I paid, maybe X becomes 2X. Maybe the price of my home doubles, which is great on paper. But then to access that, like pretty much the only thing I could do would be to borrow against it. Because if I sell and cash out, I'm then buying the market. So my dollar as a buyer doesn't go any further. So really the only way to realize those gains would be to sell and become a renter, which is not, there's a reason that I bought a home and it was not as an investment, right? So I'd rather not do that. To sell and then flee to some other low-cost state or something, to relocate to a different area where the housing market isn't great. Or to just leverage and borrow against it. And I think most people don't live any of those three ways. Most people just want to own a family and live in. And if that area becomes more dense, more walkable, more urban, in the long run, that's also going to radically help that same property value statistic, right? I mean, what's property worth in Midtown Manhattan? We can't afford it, and that's very urban and very walkable and very built up. Imagine somebody trying to preserve the rural character of Manhattan Island. They wouldn't be doing themselves any favors in terms of the value of the property that they owned.
Yeah, this might sound like a not very friendly opinion here, but I think a lot of the people who are, well, many people who are rather NIMBY in their disposition is because they don't have that long-term perspective. And who do those tend to be? Well, the elderly, right? So they fulfill the two criteria, right? So number one, if they do move out, they might be moving out into, say, an ALF, and they would love to cash out of the home value price and then have a bunch of money that they can use for their own, living and whatever. And the other fact is, they're not so much interested in what is this town, this neighborhood, this environment going to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that's not on their horizon.
Unless they're
so
so I'm going to be kind now to
good. Please,
not
yes,
that
we need
we
to
have any older listeners actually participate, like hearing this conversation as we go out Twitch streaming Stellaris. But the but to be kinder to our
We're probably the
senior,
oldest ones on here,
we
Tyler.
are. We're the senior citizens. But to be kind to our fellow
Yeah.
senior citizens for a moment, maybe kinder than they deserve. Many do think generationally about their wealth, though, right? And so, there is the I can cash it out, and then that becomes something that I can live on in a care facility if necessary. It can defer medical expenses that are common late in life. But many people do want to sit on that valuable real estate to have something to give to their kids or their grandkids, or to be able to pass wealth down generationally. And I still think that having real value grow instead of just growing on paper, uh, this sort of artificial, ooh, my home is now worth twice what it was. I just get assessed and pay twice the taxes, that sort of thing. Um, Real value where the community is growing, you're getting more urbanism, you're getting more business coming in, you're getting more prosperity, more economic activity, and value is increasing just as a function of all of that. I think that is, that's perhaps something that I think even older people are interested in because they think about the generations of their family that are following them, and they care about that generational wealth. I think to some extent, and I think to some extent what you're saying is very, very much true,
Anomaly
which is that
found.
still they have
Research.
tremendous incentive to care about that and to try to protect themselves across a 5-year time horizon, 10-year time horizon, and then that's all you really have to care about. I
Yeah.
think
Well,
we're
I certainly admire and respect the ones that fall into the camp that you're describing, Tyler. Those are, yeah. Hi, Oren.
Hey, how's everybody going? How's everything going?
good. How you doing, Oren?
Good. I got a job interview. I'm using this to procrastinate a little bit.
Got a job interview.
We're happy to help.
Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to dox. But by the way, Tyler, I didn't tell you, but I got rid of. I have the soundboard still, but I got rid of the smoke alarm after the controversy last time. But I can't say what I replaced it with is much better.
Well, if Max is probably unfamiliar, and probably anybody watching this is too, Oren, when he streams, has a soundboard set up, and one of the sounds on it was a smoke alarm chirp, which I think is probably the worst sound you could possibly inflict upon anybody, especially without explanation, because they immediately start looking at every smoke alarm in their own home.
Sorry, Tyler, I didn't hear you. Is there something going on with your mic?
Oh, am I not?
Oh, I heard him. No, I heard him.
I'm just messing with you. Sorry.
Oh, Jesus, Oren.
I think there might be one sound that might be even worse for a lot of people than the smoke alarm one, and that's the hey SIRI or
Oh,
GOOGLE.
yes.
That one's
Activating
annoying.
people's home devices is also probably a bit of an irritant.
Research complete.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get rid of USB. It's not. I just want to do it to mess with you this one time. But I'm not. I think it's really obnoxious.
Situation
My
log
favorite is the
complete.
Seinfeld one.
I just love that, Oren, when you stream you've got the setup to turn it into like a morning drive time radio show.
I don't know. What you mean afternoon?
What's that?
You mean afternoon?
No, well, so you stream in the afternoon, but I mean, all the irritating morning talk programs with the soundboards and yeah. No, I'm the one that, at least for you, is streaming in the morning. I know it's early there.
Spaceborne life form encountered.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm glad that we spread things out and got some different
Anomaly
coverage on
found.
different days
System
and
survey
different times
complete.
for people. Max and
What were you guys
Max
talking
and
about before
we
I
drifted.
derailed everybody?
I was just gonna say Max and I drifted into Yimbyism there for a little while, which is always a hazard, of course, that you drift into Yimbyism. But have been talking a little bit about AI and sort of balancing the public reaction with the, I think, huge promise technologically and economically of what AI can offer. How much now I know you probably pass me up, Oren, and Max probably laps both of us in terms of adapting AI usage into kind of your daily life and your daily workflows. But how much do you feel like you're keeping up with it? I know I always feel like I'm two
Research
steps
complete.
behind.
AI, I'm trying to, but I've been using it a lot for job prep. I'm hoping that it helps a lot. I use it a lot for work. That's for sure.
How do you feel? What do you? What's your kind of workflow that you use it for?
Research complete.
What you can do is you can turn on the microphone and you can just ask. It gives you questions and you speak directly to it, and then you can just submit your answer that way, and it will grade you. It's not perfect because uh, sometimes things get mistranslated and other things, but I don't know. I feel like it's been helpful. Very good at structuring thoughts.
Research.
So I know I occasionally provide draft white papers and stuff in the course of consulting work that I do, and I think the biggest way that I feel very comfortable with AI and have integrated it very much into what I'm doing is as sort of a research assistant. Its ability to just be an entire research team for you is fantastic, and to have it point you to the primary sources so that you can then use those primary sources. So it's not even like, oh, what if it hallucinates? What if it imagines something? If it imagines something, it just wastes a little bit of my time pointing me someplace that
Construction
doesn't exist.
complete.
But for the most part, it's great at doing that really tough job of finding the source that you want to be consulting and referencing in something. To the point of saving orders of magnitude of effort and allowing jobs to be done a lot cheaper and a lot faster
Construction
than they
complete.
otherwise would. That's the area that, as much as I feel like I lag, I definitely appreciate that application of it, and think it does fantastically there.
Do you actually use the deep research function specifically with either Claude or OpenAI or anything?
Yeah. So I mean, with Claude, I don't. Most of what I do does not require me to use the deep research function.
An
We have
alien
kind of
empire
like
has
played around
established
with it,
communications.
but honestly, even just like Sonnet 4.6 or wherever it is does a really good job pointing to primary sources, provided that they're kind of vaguely publicly available online.
Construction complete.
Does a pretty good job redirecting to stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of impressed with it across the board.
Did you get a chance to play with Fable before before the debacle on Friday?
No, I didn't.
Uh,
Go into that.
I,
Tell me
uh,
about
I
the debacle on Friday. I don't even know what you're referencing.
this was
Educate me, Max.
this was a big thing. So, okay, let me back up. So, Anthropic created a model called Mythos. Forget it was now, like maybe a couple months ago or whatever, a few months ago, and they were talking about how Mythos is incredibly, like, it's a generational leap in front of the current frontier model, which is Opus 4.8. I guess it was 4.7 at the time or whatever when they released it. And they said it was so incredibly powerful, which, is partly marketing, but is partly true, that it was able to discover, various like bugs that could be exploited in different code and different applications and operating systems and things like that. So other than so before they released Mythos to the general public, they created something called Project Glasswing, which was meant to allow specific companies that were kind of approved to use Project Glasswing to verify and run it against their own systems to find these potential vulnerabilities and patch them before the general public would get access to this model and be able to find those vulnerabilities themselves and exploit them. So they had this Glasswing project, etc., and that was running for a while. You may also recall that the administration and Anthropic had a bit of a let's just call it a falling out some couple months ago over how the administration wanted Anthropic to basically allow them to use Anthropic's models for, I think it was autonomous weapons, completely with no human in the loop, and something else. I forget what it was. But the Trump administration and Anthropic got into this thing. So eventually, Anthropic was named persona non grata by the Trump administration, and oh my God, I can't believe it. We're not going to give you more contracts because you guys are not doing exactly what we say. You know, you're not jumping. You're not asking us how high when we tell you to jump. So okay, so all that happened. Now, fast forward to, I think it was like 10 days ago now or whatever. It was like maybe a week and a half, where, I mean, 2 weeks ago now, where they finally released a version of Mythos available to the general public. That is to say, people subscribing to Anthropic. And that version was called Fable 5. So they released Fable 5 to the general public. They were saying that they're going to have it available for like, I think it was like 10 days, and then they would take it offline again, etc. I think because they wanted to sort of see how people would use it, and then they'd go back, make some tweaks, and then they'd release it again probably like a few weeks after that, a month later, the full proper release that they wouldn't then be taking offline. So they released it, and the funny thing is, it had such heavy restrictions on it. So it didn't just have the normal restrictions, right? So like right now, if you ask Opus, like, how do I make a nuclear bomb? It would say, don't ask me that, and I'm not talking to you anymore. It had that and more, right? So like, I actually have a screenshot very hilariously where I opened up Fable 5 on the phone, and I said something like, no joke, how much lactose is there in feta cheese? And it responded with, that is not a question I can answer. I'm demoting you to a lower class model because that's a very dangerous question to be asking. I actually posted this somewhere. I was like, thank you, Anthropic, for defending us from the potential WMDs that would result from people eating too much lactose.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to see what happens when that gets out of control. But I wasn't the only one. This was like a common, like everybody was talking about how ridiculously sensitive the protection. So why did it trigger on that? Well, because you see, that's asking questions that have something to do with biology, and biology could have something to do with biotech, and biotech could have something to do with, et cetera. You can see where that's going.
Sure.
So
you get from lactose to
but
bioweapons research with that sort of like chain of, how many degrees from Kevin Bacon.
Right. And imagine a model that's like really smart at figuring out the tiny little way in which is funny because almost everything relates back, like what does they say, like everything relates to biology, which relates everything to chemistry, which relates everything to physics, which is all math, blah blah blah. Right. So it's the same kind of story. So people were posting all kinds of hilarious rejections on Reddit about like, what was going on and all this stuff. So okay, so that was happening. a couple of days later, on Friday, I think it was like Friday at like 5:30. So they released this model on like a Tuesday or thereabouts, and then on Friday, a few days later, they got a letter from the Trump administration saying your model so basically has been jailbroken. We know this for a fact, and you have 90 minutes to prevent any foreigners from being able to use your model. Any foreigners.
That's
right. And you already you're probably like, what the hell does that mean, right? Like, how does one know whether a foreigner? Okay, so what do they define as a foreigner? Foreigner is any non-U.S. citizen, including
So it's not even like
people living in the United.
You could imagine. Let's forget whether the test is or the request is a reasonable one. You could imagine like saying you've got to lock down any non-U.S. IP address, right? Something like
Right.
that gets
right. And of course that was not what they said.
no.
But here's the funny part. Anthropic as a company has a large number, I don't know if it's like 50%, but it's like a large number of people working for it in the United States on green cards and other visas
Right.
that are not
Construction complete.
US citizens that helped build Fable 5.
Right.
They themselves were now prevented from being able to access the model, literally sitting in their own
Station
Anthropic
under attack.
offices
That's wild.
in San Francisco. Yes, it is wild. And so of course Anthropic had no way to actually be able to verify whether anybody was a US citizen within 90 minutes. So their only option was fully disable Fable 5.
Shut it down.
Just remove them all. And that's what they did. So in the intervening time since that happened, there have been all kinds of stories about, well, what was it really that caused this to happen? Was it, was it a real exploit? Was it not? Was it something that was tripping it up? Was it not? And
Construction
without getting into too many details, from everything that I've been able to gather, there was no legitimate, like if you or I sat down and looked at the issue for 10 minutes, we would conclude this makes no sense.
Right.
What they're saying that Anthropic Fable 5 can do is the same thing that GPT 5.5 can do, and that's already a model that everybody can access. So
Without
the
getting,
only
without getting
seemingly
too terribly in the weeds, what was it that you're saying that that it can do? And intervening into the answer, Serenko in chat, yes, you just saw Josh Eckel as leader. We are playing here as Project Liberal in Stellaris, so we'll see if Eckel remains leader for long. But yes,
See how long you
they
last.
did rename the. That's good eagle-eyed viewing there, spawning Josh Eckel with his delightfully twisty mustache here in Stellaris. But yeah, can you walk us through, Max? What is it that in sort of like in layman's terms that they had determined was the big risk?
Yeah. So you know how I said that Fable 5 had a very trigger-happy
Construction complete.
rejection algorithm, right? It would reject virtually anything. Okay.
Sort of the
So
opposite of a risk. But yeah.
right. Like everything is a false positive. So what happened is that if
Research
you
complete.
asked Fable 5 something like if you let's say you put a vulnerability like one of the other things that Fable 5 really didn't ever want to touch was helping you solve a like cybersecurity issue. So like if you have any sort of and by cybersecurity I mean like, hey, this application I'm building, uses I don't know, passwords, and then obviously you want your coder to be able to be like, hey, this is an issue here in how like passwords are being like printed on a text file and loaded on the internet. You probably don't want to do that. Okay, so like that kind of stuff. Like every sensible model does that. So if you ask Fable 5 to do that, it would immediately reject you because it had this incredibly trigger happy, like, I don't want to talk to you about anything having to do with security or biology or, like whatever, 2,000 other things. So, of course, you could go to GPT 5.5 and ask it to fix it, and it would, of course, fix exactly the problem that you're describing. No problem. But what people discovered was that you could go into Fable 5, into the coding version of it, and you could say, instead of saying like, hey, what is this problem? You could put the problem, that sort of problem into your code. And instead of saying like, look for security problems, you could just say, look generally for problems that my code has and fix them. And if you did that, it's incredibly like trigger happy, whatever on the front end. You could kind of not trigger it and it would just fix the problem. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you could call that getting around it. But this is already something that you do routinely on GPT 5.5, and it's not like Fable 5 could, do something more dangerous than what GPT 5.5 could do. But you could technically get it to do that without triggering its incredibly crazy, trigger happy, rejection algorithm. And that seems to be what caused the administration to, let's say this, it was the pretext for what caused the administration to want to say that Anthropic is too dangerous for foreigners, which again means even people in the US with a visa, to be able to access. So, and when I say pretext, I think because my bet, and I think a lot of people who are looking at this very seriously, is that this was the Trump administration throwing its weight around and saying, we remember, Anthropic, when you didn't immediately play nice with us a couple of months back. This is what happens. Yeah. Right. You are now seeing how it goes when you cross us. And so that is kind of where we're at right now. There's of course prediction markets that are talking about like, by when is Fable 5 going to come back? And currently it's I think the chances of it coming back before July 1st are something like 20%, and before August 1st are something like 70%. So people think it's likely to come back in sometime in July.
But that assumption would be very in line with how the Trump administration has dealt with media entities, has dealt with law firms, has dealt with other sort of, any kind of organization that they feel has crossed the administration, right? Is we're going to find the way to leverage the power of the state to punish you, right, for stepping out of line, and to make an example of you to others that you need to play ball or it's going to be bad for you.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, several members of Congress, anybody interested could Google this or whatever, Claude it, but sent a letter, I think it was to Hegseth, saying, tell us as specifically why you removed, you sent this cease and desist to Anthropic the way you did, at 5:30 on a Friday, with 90 minutes to comply. Tell us exactly what it was that triggered this, and a handful of other questions. Now, Hegseth doesn't, he doesn't have to reply, right? I mean, he could just tell Congress he can give Congress the finger. But if this ever got in front of a courtroom, it wouldn't look good that the administration ignored members of Congress asking these questions directly. So, so there is some pressure on the administration to get off Anthropic's back, if only because this is having a chilling effect on the entire AI industry. Sure. It was predicted that OpenAI would be releasing a model actually this week or last week in order to compete with Fable 5 and all this stuff. They haven't. Google hasn't. They also haven't released Gemini 3.5. So it's hard to pin anything onto exactly, but the guess is this is pretty scary. The fact that the administration can do this to a company like that, the way they did it, and it means they could do it to any of these companies. And what that ultimately does is push AI development, on the margins. It's pushing AI development to China, of course, and to open weight models running in China, which I would say is not what we want to be doing. And to some extent, it's also helping to push some of this over to Europe. Minstrel, I think, is what the French one is called. They have their own LLM AI development group over there, but they're quite far behind. So as nice as it would be to have European AI development be able to keep us on our toes, it doesn't look like it's going to happen right now. It's us and China, and that's about it.
Yeah, China's the arms race, right? And that's not a dynamic that you love to have. You don't love to feel like there's no ability to tap the brakes because you've got China right on the tail, and you don't like China feeling like they have no ability to tap the brakes because they've got to catch up with the U.S. But nonetheless, that's the dynamic. So you're going to have those pressures driving all of that. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the message that the administration would like AI developers to hear is not, you have to slow down because we're going to be hyper cautious and hyper vigilant and hyper weird and xenophobic about foreigners not being able to access it. But they just want developers to hear the message, play ball with us or else we can shut you down. And it doesn't seem like it's having that effect, right? It's not having the effect of saying, like, OpenAI saying, oh, well, we play ball with DoD, so we don't have to worry. It sounds like it's making them tap the brakes too.
Yeah. And investors are, I think, rightfully getting uncomfortable because it's. I think, like we were speaking about before, there's definitely a strong Luddite tendency that goes along with populism, and it's rearing its ugly head, through the particular the particular mob mentality of the Trump administration. But it is rearing its ugly head, and I think we're going to see this kind of Bernie MAGA coalition building and forming along the lines of using whatever tactics it can to suppress development of this technology, which, as we've been saying, is really a synonym for drive development of this technology into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
Right. Yeah, and I don't see. I see the domestic pressures to keep that from happening far exceeding any pressure that the administration is going to leverage. I just don't see American companies being willing to fall behind in AI. I just don't. So, as much as it is scary and it is intimidating and it forces people to slow down to some extent, I don't think, I don't think there's pretty much anything that the Trump administration can do that would really prevent at least the effort to stay ahead of the Chinese, right? Whether they get in the way of companies having access to the capital or having the ability to continue is a different story. But yeah. And yes, as is pointed out in chat, we got a fanatic xenophobe militarist neighbor, and we have another fanatic xenophobe driven exterminator, or we've got the least friendly neighbors in Stellaris history. So our diplomatic efforts to build that, pan-galactic liberal institutions are going to maybe be a little bit difficult to get off the ground here for a while.
I feel like this is a microcosm of Project Liberals, real fights in the real world
fights
here
in the
with
real world. We've got fanatic
the xenophobes,
purifiers
yeah.
on one side of us. We've got the hegemonic imperialists on the other, and then we've got a literal collective hive mind on the other border, which is probably the most sane of all of our neighbors. Looking at it, so yes, we're prepared to strap in for the long haul. You can draw those parallels as you will. But yeah, I do think it's I mean, I want the AI future to be here. I'm not gonna lie. It's I'm excited for it. I'm bullish on it. I think it is much more likely that we have, AI utopia than AI dystopia. So I'm definitely not a doomer, but it's getting from there to here. I think is a delicate road to walk because, like you said, Max, that connection between populists and the sort of Luddite tendency and the ability to kind of whip the masses up on anti-AI stuff, anti-data center stuff, which people think that preventing data centers from being built is going to stop AI, or that stopping AI prevents data centers, or like that those issues are being merged in the minds of a lot of just sort of everyday voters. How we navigate that medium-term political disruption, and to some extent social and economic disruption, right? Because like jobs are going to go away at some point. The kinds of jobs we're not used to having go away are going to go away at some point. Sort of like white collar, middle class jobs are the ones most on the chopping block right now, and I think middle class is not used to that level of insecurity sometimes. So how to navigate all of that discord is, I think maybe an open question. And I told you the collective hive mind was going to be the sanest of our neighbors, and it wants to agree to non-aggression, so we're absolutely going to do that.
Construction complete.
I don't know. I don't know that I would agree, Tyler, that a lot of those sort of white collar, middle class or upper middle class jobs or whatever are really going away. I think they're going to change. I think they're going to change a lot. But I don't know that they will disappear. I mean, I think some percentage of them will disappear, like will go away. But I think some new types of that same job will come in that we don't kind of expect right now. It's sort of like saying, if somebody said in the past, well, that reporters and journalists and all this stuff will completely disappear because of the death of mass media and whatever. And the fact is, well, yeah, they kind of did, but then there's new things that they're not really called reporters or journalists, but sort of like what Project Liberal does. I mean, it's or what a lot of YouTubers do in a more, I was about to say amateur way, but a lot of them make quite a bit of money.
And a lot of the content is quite good, right? So yeah,
right. It just looks different. It's not necessarily, so did it go away? Yeah, in a certain sense, but it's also there more than ever in a different sense. I think it'll be similar with
how AI is going to affect it. But there are certainly, plenty of jobs that restructured economically through past, major shifts. If AI is going to be some industrial revolution level change, which I think it has the potential to be, then there's absolutely going to be, lots of labor force disruption. And I don't think blue collar stuff is safe, by the way, because I just think it's further down the line, because you need a physical body for AI to start to take physical work. But it is something that I definitely think that there's a lot of insecurity about, and a lot of times that drives public behavior, it drives voting outcomes, that sort of thing. I think the biggest fear that the middle class has is not being able to stay middle class, right? Falling out of the middle class is kind of the great middle class anxiety. And I think the idea that AI might be disruptive to the type of work that a lot of middle class people are doing is certainly driving some of that. Whether that comes to pass or not, you certainly have the rosier projection than I suggested for sure. That it would just involve learning some new skills and kind of changing what the job looks like, but that folks would still be able to have that work. I'm not entirely sure that there aren't some things that won't go away. Sort of in the way that online banking has killed like physical presence of bank tellers and things like that, right? That's on a micro scale. But you could be right. It could be a lot like how the hysteria around ATMs killing bank teller jobs never manifested, right? You still had plenty of bank tellers working after ATMs came on the scene. So both of those are things we see played out in the economy routinely and historically.
Yeah.
I think
like
Serenko offers in chat that jobs that require cultural context or making use of multiple skills should be resistant to AI. I would add to that, I think human interface itself is only doable by a human. So it's something that involves like long-term relationship building, relationship management kind of skills, I think might be a little hardier. Also, shout out to Otir in chat, who points out that the biggest issue with populism as a general rule of thumb is that it often sacrifices concerning issues for rapid progress. Applying that to AI, there are a slew of reasonable concerns about AI, but because it's being dumbed down to pro or against anything AI, it fails to address any of the nuance. And I think that's
Research complete.
I think populism is a great eradicator of nuance. So that is a very fair point as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting you put it that way, because I think something I've seen in some friends that have kind of moved in that direction is the number of times that they sort of send me some kind of content or seem to find interesting some kind of content made on a subject by somebody who really doesn't know a lot about the subject. They're just, some, whatever, like Asmongold says blah, blah, blah about, some, and it's like, and I'm just like thinking like, this is where you're like, this is such a nuanced, careful subject, whatever is being discussed. And, I want to go to the smartest people about that subject, like people who know a whole lot and really deeply understand it, and then can translate it for me in a way that I can understand. And then I want to get a diverse perspective of those people, right? Like people who are experts in it from different corners and, thinking about it in different ways. But I don't really care what, Joe Bob has to say about some, about whatever's the latest happening in geopolitically with Ukraine or something. Like I'm just not excited about that. But I noticed that friends who are kind of falling for that populist trap are, and they just don't seem to find value in deep expertise, which is kind of disturbing, I think.
It's increasingly people's number one value is authenticity these days. It's increasingly the case, and it's really frustrating because if you are authentically garbage, as we see in the DSA, or rather New York, that seems to be more valuable than actually than having any sort of background or experience. That one woman who got elected, I can't remember her name. It starts with a D, but she like literally has a blank resume and won over the chair of the Hispanic caucus, and it just why? Because she came off as more authentic.
Where did that originate? Like, when did we, or how did a culture drift from finding, from admiring and being interested in hearing the opinions of people who think about a certain topic a lot and carefully, and have read a lot of books on it, or have, to this obsession with what you're calling authenticity, which I agree with you. It seems to be where we're at. But how did that materialize?
Great question, and it definitely started, I think, or at least like really popped up with Trump. Um, I guess what I would say, or where I believe it came from, is that either there's just a belief, and I shouldn't say it's a belief. So there are people who are struggling. That's absolutely true. Combined with TikTok and other social medias telling you that you're struggling and that things are so much better. If only you were more like Russia or an EU country or whatever other thing. And so there just has been a lot of destabilizing rhetoric in that has been placed into our social media environment, I guess, which has caused, I think, a lot of people to just distrust the establishment entirely. And you see this, not just with our politicians, you see this with like USAID, which was supported by both lefties and by MAGA, that's defunding. You see this with the vaccines. You see this with virtually all facets of our government. It's totally under fire. Um, and it's really difficult because it's very easy to just say things could be better because they could be better. But I do think a lot of it is disinformation. But I do want to also say there's been a lot of people who've fallen through the cracks, and we have not been able to raise that floor for whatever reason.
I'll jump in and weigh in on this with something that maybe is much more of a like proto form of what you're talking about, but goes back as long as I've been involved in politics. My first campaign as a volunteer staffer was the George W. Bush's first campaign in 2000, and I think one of the big reasons that Bush beat Al Gore in 2000 was that he's somebody that the average Joe would want to sit down and have a beer with, right? Never mind that George W. Bush didn't drink. That was the perception was he's a fella you could sit down and have a beer with. That's a version of talking about authenticity without using the word authenticity, which was not part of the political discourse at the time. It was I think an important thing that existed in politics. Now, I think the distinction between that and the Trump phenomenon is that it was who would the average American want to have a beer with versus I think Trump sort of speaks to the lowest denominators of his base of support. So there is this sense of like, anyone who supports Trump can actually feel good, like Trump is a permission slip to live down to your lowest instincts, right? Hey, I can't be that bad because no matter what I'm doing, the president of the United States is at least as bad as I am. And that's a very different thing than who do I feel like I could sit down and enjoy having a beer with, right? But both of those are kind of forms of authenticity politics. And I think that's been with us for a very, very long time. Sometimes even just like alongside, hey, experts still have value. And, there was this big sense, now that I'm thinking about the 2000 campaign, right, that sure, Bush had that, but that he needed to shore up the ticket with a lot of expertise behind him because he was seen as somebody who was not, expert enough to bring gravitas that was expected to govern in a number of different areas. So you had a whole team built around that administration full of experts that could boost that up. So there were clearly still a balancing of those priorities back in 2000 that seems to be absent from our politics today. But yeah, I think the origins of that authenticity being a prized thing go back a lot further than Trump, and then the current moment with like Mamdani and AOC and all of those folks as well.
Yeah, and I would say though with Bush at least, like you said, he came across as, I guess, like you said, people wanted to have a beer with him and such, but he didn't strike me as someone who was contemptuous of expertise.
No, yeah,
Unlike Trump, which
right.
the only experts he would ever deem to call experts are people who fully and completely agree with him, including when he changes his mind from day to day. And he's surrounded himself in his administration with people who are exactly that. They are also contemptuous of expertise and frankly don't have very much of it themselves. But like you said, I think this also goes to a lot of elements in the progressive side of the equation, which mocked expertise in all kinds of ways, because it came from people of the wrong skin color or the wrong ethnicity. Therefore, it was, illegitimate in some way or other, which I think is, we got the toxicness from both sides, on this factor.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of the populist message on the left is built around, that's some form
Special
of
project complete.
that same sort of authenticity politics for sure, right? I mean, the kind of the worst example of it I can think of. Well, maybe not the worst example of it I can think of, but a bad example I can think of is like Graham Plattner, right? Who just seems to be like playing down to the worst stereotypes in all the same way that Trump does, but just with a left leaning program, right? And so yeah, I don't think there's a monopoly on it. I think there is a monopoly on controlling the federal government while checking those boxes, and that's what Trump has right now. And so I think that's why there is a dire need to oppose the Trump administration and what it's doing and push back against all of those things. But yeah, it certainly can exist in other ways for sure.
I was also thinking recently how culturally there are so few, in terms of like the kinds of TV shows and that kind of thing that are coming out and such. My girlfriend was watching, what's the name of that show? The one where you have a bunch of rich people and they're all fighting over their dads.
Oh, Succession?
Succession, yeah. And it's a show. I mean, I've seen some episodes and then I kind of grew tired of it. But it's a show, as far as I can tell, about like everybody in that show is not a good person. Like there's nobody really that I would want to root for, and I think there's just not a lot of shows that demonstrate either someone who has expertise, like in an intellectual way, or someone who has power and influence and money and etc. There's so few shows that show those people in a good light nowadays. Or take the example of all the, a lot of the recent Star Trek shows,
right?
Which instead of talking about, the Federation as this essentially force for good and, people doing their best and, confronting difficult situations, but they're genuinely competent, professional, intelligent, reasonable people. Now it's just a lot of assholes. Like it's just a lot of lowlives, like just people being awful, more or less everywhere, all over the place. And I just think that, there's a lot of questions about, where is the cart, where is the cart before the horse in this situation? It's like some self-reinforcing problem, but the media is contributing to this. That is to say, the stuff that we see on TV and on movies and everywhere else. And yeah, I think it's just a shame. You have politics feeding into it. You have the social media landscape feeding into it. You have Hollywood feeding into it. All of these different sources kind of just pushing messages that are either populist directly or result in a sort of populist worldview.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. the question of Star Trek is such a difficult one, particularly, right? Because I think there's a lot to criticize about the direction modern Star Trek has gone, and I think you hit on a really important element of it. And yet I find myself habitually not wanting to be bedfellows with the sort of people that are very quick to criticize modern Star Trek because, you know, it cast a woman or a person of color, or, you know, any of these other things where people get upset that like media is woke now. So it's always a balancing act, right? For me at least, it's always a balancing act.
This is where we can bring in the nuance here,
Yeah,
Tyler, where we were talking about earlier, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, no, I think that you've got a very good point that it is something where the sort of
Research
media that I think a lot of us grew up on that really rewarded this idea of expertise, of, you know, a high level of skill, of attaining, you know, whatever particular you know, thing it was. If it was a mystery show, it was about, you know, how skilled and precise you know, the detective was, how they'd hone their skills, or even like CSI, right? Like how you can rely on technology and expertise to solve murders, right? Instead of it being like, you know, the gritty cop on the street that does what he has to do. It's the nerds in the lab figuring it all out, right? And you don't get as much of that anymore. I'm sure somebody can come up with a counterexample where CSI is still running into its, you know, 90 millionth season in some spinoff somewhere, but it does seem like that's drifted out of the public consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a general prevalence of cynicism and nihilism in so much of this.
Cynicism is the worst part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cynicism is what kills liberalism. It's what rots, what sloppulism requires in order to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the great example is you know, the like the West Wing, right? Could you imagining a show like the West Wing today, with just like the sort of like strident, almost by modern standards naive optimism that it just embodied and brought into like every episode, into every conflict, into every storyline, every resolution. uh you don't get a lot of that. I mean, it does seem like there is a big heavier dose of cynicism, the idea that it to be realistic something has to be gritty, you know, those sort of things.
Yeah.
It really is it really is a shame.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree with that. I think we live in a society. We live in a society. We live in a society where people are they're afraid uh, to be optimistic. They don't want to care. Like it's they look foolish for caring. I think that the younger generation has. I'm really where I we need to figure out how to get a grip on social media. I absolutely think that this is alternative media has been such a blight. I know people have their issue with mainstream media, but even like Fox, I feel like is terrible. But like I feel like it's at least somewhere around the truth. You go to alternative media and it's just endless deluge of cynicism and nonsense. I can't watch George Carlin anymore. He's so cynical. I think it all started with. I don't want to say it all started with him, but I'm over. I have a lot of issues with alternative media.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oda raises a good point on Twitch in chat. He says he believes a lot of populist appeal is due to the perversion of expertise, like the smoking was once considered healthy by doctors. Yeah, there's this sort of inversion of truth where, you know, the fact that experts were wrong about something in the past is trotted out as evidence that experts can't be trusted, instead of just realizing that the fact that experts were wrong about something in the past, and we know they were wrong about it because experts discovered something different and have updated. I mean, like, this is how knowledge works, right? Like when a hypothesis is wrong, or when something pushes back against our understanding of the universe, that's great news. That's the opportunity to go learn why that is and to expand human knowledge. So, like doctors are more trustworthy now because we know that they were wrong about smoking in the past. Like if somehow doctors were considered never to have been ever wrong about anything, then they'd be practicing a version of medicine that goes back hundreds or thousands of years. That's not what you want. You want them to have been wrong and updated their understanding. That's the nature of expertise. But I think a lot of populism drives off of the misunderstanding of that. If you're ever wrong about something in the past, then that means you're a loser and you suck. And we need somebody like Trump who just wins all the time. And that's I think a great encapsulation of just
Construction
the
complete.
epitome of anti-intellectualism.
Yeah, and I think it misunderstands how we learn things.
Right.
Right, we learn things because sometimes we're wrong. In fact, sometimes a lot of people are wrong. In fact, a lot of people who really know about the given subject are wrong about the given subject that they know about or think they know about. And then someone else who's also knows a lot about the subject comes in and has a new theory. I mean, this is the whole point about how science works and how progress works.
Right.
But when people don't understand that that's how it's supposed to work, right? I mean, like, knowing things is hard. The world is a complicated place, and humans, we're not born knowing everything, so we kind of have to stumble around and try really hard and have systems that produce good information, through the mechanisms within themselves, and that's how we progress. But I think if people don't step back and see that system and see that, yeah, of course, without people being wrong, in fact, a lot of people, that the system is never going to learn, then I think we fall into these traps. The experts were wrong and thought whatever salt was bad. It turns out salt is perfectly fine. Like, yes, that's okay. That's expected. That's what we want to see happen. It would be weird to live in a world where actually we already know all the things. The experts have already figured it all out. They're all correct about everything, and you're like, that world doesn't exist. And if it did, it would kind of mean that the future is, that's it. There's no more future. Nothing else is going to change, and I wouldn't want to live in that world.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the end of knowledge at that point, right? There would be no experts if experts couldn't be wrong. We would all just exist in a state of being right all the time and knowing all the things. I mean, I learned calculus in high school, right? The reason I learned calculus in high school, and it was revolutionary to Newton and Leibniz a few hundred years earlier, was precisely because once something is known, it's fairly easy for it to then be widely known. It's the experts that are necessary to deal with those cases where we are wrong, and we need to figure out why we're wrong, and we need to figure out what the real answer is. That's where a high school kid is not going to give you the answer that an expert will. A high school kid can integrate a function the way that Newton could integrate a function, right? But that's because that's old knowledge. That's because that's something that can and has been taught and handed down. And it's the frontier of knowledge where expertise is so important, and the reason that we can't just all be experts.
Yeah, I think actually that's a crucial distinction that a lot of the populists miss, is that we even if you spend all day every day learning about a handful of subjects, it takes so much work to become an expert in anything.
Right.
Like, the world is just an incredibly complicated place, complex place. There's all kinds of theories and factors and things pulling in different directions to understanding a thing. There's always a deeper level of understanding of whatever the thing is. And your random guy on YouTube is not going to have almost certainly spent the time to become an expert in anything other than being able to stream random stuff on YouTube. And so it's important to actually try and find who are the people who have spent a lot of time thinking about particular subjects and go and learn from them. You're never going to know as much as them, but you're going to know so much more. You're going to understand so much more. It's going to have so much more power, because of course knowledge is power, as we know, to understand this stuff, and then to be able to do more in the world, if you pay attention to the right people.
Yeah.
But like we were saying earlier, it's that does not seem to be the way that the majority is going.
No, and it's unfortunate because, you know, you don't have to be an expert, which is a very difficult thing to do, to appreciate and value expertise. And I think getting back to a place where people understand, look, first of all, there's no shame in the fact that a physicist knows a lot more physics than I do, right? That doesn't make them a better person. That doesn't make me a bad person. That's not an insult to me that I would give deference to somebody on questions of physics who is a physicist. That, like, decoupling that from the sort of insecurity that populists thrive on, I think is one of the keys to getting back to a worldview where we can admire people who are good at stuff, but we don't need to feel denigrated in ourselves that we are not. And I think, like, the populist mantra is sort of, you know, you think you're better than me. And sometimes the answer is yes, I absolutely think I'm better than you, MAGA populist, for if no other reason than I am not a MAGA populist. But you have the power to also be not a MAGA populist and then return us to the same moral plane of existence. But like, that insecurity, I think, is the real core of it, and how we start to address that as a society and say, look, you can have value without being an expert, but you should value expertise. Again, that might be one of those cases where the nuance is just too easy to obliterate when someone can be served by doing so.
Yeah, and I think what people forget is the value of surrounding yourself. Like, when you are yourself not an expert and you know you're not an expert, the value of being able to listen to the right experts who can explain the situation or the process or whatever it is properly, so that you understand as much as you need to understand in order to function well and to make whatever choices you need to make. We forget the value of that. The value of, like, the best leaders know to put their, the advisors that they're going to put in their room should know a lot more about all kinds of things than they do. Right. It's the same thing of, like, if you're the smartest person in the room at everything, you're in the wrong room. Like,
Right.
what are you doing there? Because you're never going to grow. You're never going to make the best informed decisions that you can. And unfortunately, I think the current administration is exhibit A in this idea to surround yourself with loyalists and yes men,
Right.
as opposed to people who can genuinely bring expertise and good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, in an
Oh,
administration,
yeah.
there's incentives that voters don't even have, right? I mean, it's not just about that personal insecurity. Particularly in autocratic regimes, it's very beneficial to have people who owe their entire success to your patronage, and not to some inherent skill, right? So, like, without Trump, Pete Hegseth is never Secretary of Defense. Yes, I know I'm dead naming the department, and I'm fine with that. But Pete Hegseth never gets handed DOD to go have as his personal playground to, call people fatties and make them do more push-ups or whatever he's doing over there. while he's busy losing wars. The that never happens in an administration that cares about competence. That never happens for him with anything other than just being a loyalist. And so his loyalty is secure because his whole position relies only on that, not on some level of competence in performing the actual function. So I think that's why you see administrations lean towards incompetent officials the more that they value sort of this idea of loyalty above all else. You tend to get that, in certain types of regimes, and I think those are the regimes that Trump is definitely emulating. Project Liberal, meanwhile, is doing fairly well in space for those who are following along with our adventures here. And Josh Eckel has managed to retain, despite several elections, an iron grip on power. So we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. But yeah, I mean, Oder, you're correct in the that is part of the beauty of modern capitalism, that it allows the sort of mastery and expertise to flourish, and not only flourish but be incentivized.
Construction complete.
And and also to caution against experts that represent themselves as experts but aren't. The example you give of a U.S. personal injury lawyer discussing French constitutional law, sure, are both. It is a matter of law, but that's only the thinnest possible expertise that one could offer in connection. So yeah, I agree with that too. Again, nuance baked into everything here. So, and that's the very difficult thing about dealing with these topics, but also the rewarding and interesting thing is that these topics are ones that require a level of nuance in other directions, because there are experts that don't deserve to be considered experts because they're not really experts. And that's something that is, worth also considering. So our neighbor here seems to be having a rough go of it. No, other way around. We're just not going to get involved in a foreign war that we have very little to do with. So we're gonna make that role play decision. But yeah, I think the tremendous value in nuance is something that we should keep in mind, and I try to keep in mind on political questions too. It makes for bad messaging sometimes, right? The last thing people want, like during a campaign, is a well, it really depends kind of answer. But those are oftentimes the right answers when it comes to a lot of problems that we're facing. I'm sure we all probably had some issue leap to mind just when I said it, right? Where it's like, oof, I hate having to answer this question because it's on one hand, on the other. We're doing a little AI cleanup in game here of our own, tidying up some AI mining chips that were preventing us from claiming these last few systems. Would like to see a political system where a nuanced answer is expected and not considered a cop-out. I completely agree. I think that would be fantastic. I have no idea how to get there. That was a mistake. We will learn. But yeah, to see our political system be that way, yeah, no, I mean, it would be a wonderful thing to get to. There is possibly a way that we can get there with AI, right? I mean, I do think AI is going to have big cultural impact. Maybe not on us, but on the generation that's, my daughter's age, that's going to grow up in a world where she's learning to use AI at right around the time that, I was learning to use the internet, right? So growing up with that sort of inherent understanding of the technology, like this companionship of the technology in your life, and being able to incorporate that, that's going to have massive cultural impacts. And I wouldn't be surprised if we, as we value AI expertise and trust AI expertise more, as models get more and more advanced and more integrated into the way that we live our lives, if that might not trickle into seeing more value in human expertise. And that would be a positive thing as well. Hey, Dev, I see you bounced into chat. Well, welcome.
Hey, hey.
Max, it looked like you were about to talk, but I didn't actually hear you say anything. I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
Research.
Oh, no worries. I was a few minutes ago. You were saying something, and I had to run because I had to sign something that was being delivered, and then I got back. But you were in the middle of a thought, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, not at all. You know us. We're very freeform here. You missed me slam our fleet accidentally into way too many mining drones is what you've missed on the gameplay side of the stream. So I'm going to take that scientific principle. I'm going to learn from mistakes. I'm going to update my worldview. I'm going to modify my presumptions. We're going to get better.
I haven't played Stellaris in a long time. How has it changed a lot recently, like in the past year or so?
It's changed a lot. In fact, I'm actually playing a version like one version back from the current version, because there were features implemented after I had kind of done like the Project Liberal custom design setup and everything, and I just didn't want to monkey around with a patch that just dropped like a week ago. But yeah, I mean, core gameplay has changed a lot since I played it on release, and it has changed a ton since the original release version in many huge ways. I think they're on like version 4.4 now or something like that. 4.4 point something. And yeah, there's been some pretty significant updates, tons of content, more content than I'm even able to keep up with now. So like a lot of the origins that you can start with and everything, I've done maybe half of them. It's a lot of game now. But like a lot of the paradox stuff, that also becomes a bit of a barrier if you haven't gotten into it and you're like, ugh, which DLCs are good? What do I need to buy? What do I not need to care about? That can become a tricky thing sometimes. But I've got most of the stuff for it, and yeah, it's I enjoy it. I probably have as much time in it as I have in any other game. It's between the base game and the modding scene, it offers a lot of variety. Did you play it a lot back when, or just dabble in it a bit?
No, I dabbled in it a bit. My cousin was excited about it, so I dabbled in it a bit, but I never got too far into it. I was more in the Civ scene than this one when it comes to like big 4X games.
Yeah. Now I have been a fan of Civ since the original Civ days, but haven't followed it as closely recently. But I kind of have heard rumblings that there's a bit of controversy with the newest Civ release. I forget even which number it is. Is it Civ 7 now?
7, yeah. And in fact, I think they just released some kind of patch that lets people play. I haven't played Civ 7 recently. I played it a little bit, but I was more like Civ 5, Civ 6 fan, and then Civ 7 I was like, I don't like it. But apparently they released some kind of patch that lets people at least play the same civilization throughout the game.
Right, because they had adopted that sort of, what was the game, like Humankind, or like one of those Civ likes had done that where the civilization changed, and they had adopted that into 7. and I guess a lot of people didn't like it. I don't blame them. I think playing as a civilization is pretty core to what people expect from Civ.
Yeah, I think people create like an identity, like they come to see themselves like during the game, they come to see themselves as that civilization. So it's just kind of it's just kind of weird to be forced into something else. So, I kudos to them for trying something different. I mean, that's not never gonna
Spawn life form
get
encountered.
angry at that, but yeah, it seems to not have been the right call on that.
It's it is interesting the way games now, and I say now, like I'm gonna sound like I'm 70 years old saying that, but the way games now, these whippersnappers, are continually evolving.
Talk to us about the Atari here, Tyler.
Yeah,
Come on.
no, but they're continually evolving in a way that we come to expect them
Construction
to, right?
complete.
Like you mentioned, Civ 7 dropped a big patch that changed a bunch of things to allow people to do this. And so it's responding to community feedback. Are the changes positive or are they negative? It's growing in good ways. There's, we were talking about Stellaris. Has the game changed a lot? And it's like it's changed tons since its release. I think Paradox is sort of notorious, even amongst the modern trend of having a ton of DLCs, but also having a ton of major patches that are not paid DLC, but that wildly change games, over the course of their lifespan.
Research
And
complete.
there is a part of me that misses the thing. The thing that comes in the box is the thing that comes in the box. And if it's a pretty good thing, you like it, and you're happy that you bought the box, and you have the game, and the game is the game. And then if they want to make big changes, they release a sequel to the game a few years later, and you can buy that comes in a different box. There is something that I kind of miss about the steady state of a thing, like I played when I was young. I played a lot of Command and Conquer Red Alert, and it's like if you did too, you know exactly what I was playing. We were playing exactly the same thing because that product was what it was. There is something that you lose.
I feel like the first ones that were kind of doing that trend of things do change is Blizzard. So back in like StarCraft, StarCraft 1 days, like basically as soon as you had network play, that was over their servers on their end, not just like a direct LAN connection or whatever. Then you started seeing that. You started like for StarCraft, it was usually like balance changes. They would be like, oh, the hydralisks are too strong, and we gotta like, change the speed of Marines or whatever. But yeah, I mean, so I think that's crept more and more into a broader range of games until now. Like, and basically everything gets updates on Steam, unless it's 30 years old or something.
Right. Yeah, and and I can even justify it, right? I can see the appeal to it with with competitive play, especially. This idea that you would want that. You would want to be able to implement balance changes. You wouldn't want to have to wait for like the next full expansion, the next successor game to make changes that are affecting competitive play. So I do think the esports and Blizzard is a keen observation as sort of the origin point of that. But now, now we all get it, and it is expected continually, and it facilitates. There's sort of this expectation then, I think, that I shouldn't say expectation, this suspicion that lingers that maybe studios are pushing games out that aren't fully ready, knowing that they're going to drag along updates and expansions. Like, we can get it out there, we can get people's money, and then we can get it across the finish line. And I don't think harboring that suspicion, leads to a lot of satisfaction in what people buy, at least when they're buying games on release.
Yeah. The idea that you can release something that's like pretty half-baked, and then people just kind of have to play the broken version of it for a while while you keep promising them that you're going to fix it that's not a positive trend.
No, and you know, and there were bad games before all of the updating. They just were bad games, right? Like they were buggy or they were bad on release, and it's like, oof, I can't believe I spent my, you know, my hard-earned money on that. I guess I better live and learn and move on, but and then it just died, right? And the studio lost a bunch of money, and you know, it didn't get any sequels, and the property ended, right? Because it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
And now there is this sort of like, you know, I think of, you know, I also love city building games going back to the SimCity days, and played a ton of City Skylines. And City Skylines 2 was a release a couple of years ago that just had an absolute disastrous release. And I still see all of these updates where it's like, did the latest patch fix it? Is City Skylines 2 good now? Should you play it? And it's like, I like, can I just have a bad game and then write it off as a bad game, and then you just build a better game to release next time? Like, that was an easier cycle for me than figuring out, like, has this hunk of coal, like, turned into a diamond yet?
Mm. Well, to your point on this, I'm pretty sure Cities Skylines 2 is still a hunk of coal, from my understanding.
From my understanding, it is, but it got passed to a new developer now, and there's like all of this optimism in the community that
Wow.
Diamond might be around the corner. I'll believe it when I see it. But I do,
Yeah.
for the time being, miss a really good city building game in my
Yeah.
collection. I think we're going to go Freehaven here just for RP purpose. And of course, I didn't bother to make sure I had enough Unity before making that decision. So we'll come back to it. Oh, another election. We'll see if Eccles survives. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, you know, obviously people don't like DLC, paid DLC, for the reason that it's, you know, it's paid. But I think most people are, if they feel like they're getting good value out of it, and if the price point is low enough relative to what's contained, you can still get a pretty positive attitude towards a lot of DLC-heavy content.
Research complete.
It's just when that balance feels out of whack that I think as gamers we're so burned at this point and primed to feel exploited that the the reign of Eccles continues. I really didn't think he'd hold power forever, but apparently, but yeah, I think we're primed in gaming
Ships
communities to
upgraded.
The real
feel like
question,
we're being
Tyler, is
taken advantage of. Yeah.
I was gonna say the real question, Tyler, is you know, would the reign of Echo actually come to an end, or is he going to contest the results of the election? You know, after.
Look, every one of these elections has been free and fair here at Project Liberal. I guarantee it.
I don't know. You know, there might be some hanging chads or something he needs to worry about. You know.
That you know, I am so nostalgic for when our election
For the days
controversies
of hanging chads.
were as simple as some guy in Miami-Dade County, like watching him go like this for 3 hours trying to figure out if Al Gore won. It's a vote for Buchanan, but what did the voter really mean? I'm so nostalgic for when that's what we what we had to be concerned about.
You got to go back to the hanging chads days.
I love the comment in the Twitch chat. This is the space civilization the framers warned us about. I agree. I agree. But yes, I know.
Some studios did DLC well, like Larry. I think it's Larian Studios with Baldur's Gate 3. You know, they were releasing pretty significant updates and improvements to that game for months. I mean, for quite a while.
I actually
and I think also
I'm a nuance guy on Paradox DLC policy, by the way. Like, I don't want to seem so negative just because I kind of went on a tangent about games changing so much. Like, I think you flip a coin and about half of Paradox's DLC are good and worth it, and about half I still buy because I really like the studio, as long as they're non-cosmetic. But the like that stuff, it's come under fire. I think there's nuance. To just circle back to like the theme of the stream being nuance, I think there's a lot of nuance in DLC stuff. I don't think it's all bad.
Construction complete.
I think some companies that do it well are that charge for the DLCs are companies that where the DLC is really cosmetics. So there's a game that I play sometimes called The Finals. It's a first person shooter, but in that one you like the DLC has nothing to do with the actual gameplay or the mechanics. That's not how you get weapons or anything else. It's just how you put textures on your guns or have new glasses or whatever silliness. And that's totally fine. I think that's I have no problem with that. That's reasonable, and I buy some of the DLC because of that. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I don't mind supporting the studio. But yeah, when they charge for more substantive changes, that's when I get a little suspicious of that.
Yeah, the Gagus on Twitch says in chat that he likes the Paradox model. They actively support the game for 10 years straight. You buy an occasional DLC basically as a subscription service, and that's kind of how I feel about it too. Like even when a DLC is not great, I'll catch it on a Steam sale and kind of support the fact that the studio is supporting the game for as long as they are. That's kind of the way I look at it when it's a game that I really, really like and play. I mean, play hundreds of hours of, right? I'm still getting tons of value out of it, if that's the case. So, yeah. I will say that what it does tend to do is create a barrier to entry to those games. So, you mentioned in chat buying like all the DLC for Crusader Kings 2 as they came out over the span of a decade. I pretty much did the same. And then if that, like, I think 10 years after the game came out with all the DLC out, I was talking to a friend about it, and he's like, oh, that sounds really cool. I should check it out, and hit the page when it was not on a sale and saw the bundle of, like, game and all DLC, and it's like a $350 game or something. It's like, I'm never going to do that. So there is that, like, sticker shock effect. I think with Crusader Kings 2, they did something smart, which is that they eventually went to a, like, you can buy all the DLC and own it, and then it's just like it's always been, or you can pay us a monthly subscription fee to like access the back catalog of DLC that you don't actually own, and as long as you want to do it, so you could pay for 1 month and try it and play it, and then cancel if you didn't like it without having to invest the hundreds of dollars into DLC to catch up. That seemed like a fair sort of way to approach it. But yeah, I have just such a sweet spot for Paradox, even though they fall right on their face some percentage of the time. I've been playing their games forever and really appreciate it too.
I feel like one of the worst offenders in this was The Sims 4 with EA, who they just kept releasing garbage DLC after garbage DLC for years, and just sort of milking the fan base for that game until it's just a laughing stock at this point. That's the kind of game that we also need. So we need another good city sim. If City Skyline isn't going to step up to the plate, we also need a good like The Sims style game.
Agreed. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to actually leave both Minister of Defense and State out in the cold for now until we can expand. I love when you reform your government in Stellaris that it just completely wipes your cabinet out and you get to reassign all the positions to whatever you want them to be. So we will definitely populate that all appropriately. But yeah, no, I mean, EA to me is one that I find the like DLC policies to be pretty bad. I find most of EA's approach to be pretty bad. and off-putting to the extent that I'm like really reluctant to buy a game when I see that it's EA.
Yeah.
But you know, mileage may vary. Obviously, this stream not sponsored or endorsed
Research
by any
complete.
game company or game developer. All opinions are our own and probably wrong.
It's okay. If it was sponsored by anything like that, we would have just lost all of our sponsorships. So it's perfectly fine.
This stream where we complain about DLC for half an hour is sponsored by. Yeah, no, I have paid for the version of Stellaris that I am playing. not a review copy or anything. Right. We've had a surprisingly quiet playthrough given the neighborhood that we live in here. I'm surprised that these folks haven't tangled with us more. But pleasantly surprised. I don't mind a peaceful playthrough where the fanatic purifiers on your border with overwhelming fleet power just seem disinclined to do anything about the fact that you're building a free liberal society right there next to them.
Research complete.
I do think we're hitting about the point. Yeah, needs more war. I agree with you, Thor Dog on YouTube. We can probably, hopefully, poke the bear next stream. I'm gonna pause things here because we're kind of coming up on time. But I appreciate you guys in chat. I appreciate you, Max and Oren, for popping in and joining the conversation. I thought it was a good one. About AI and populism and abundance and YIMBY housing and all kinds of stuff that we touched on. I plan to do this about weekly, so you guys feel free to pop in. Any of you out there watching this or in chat on any of the various platforms, thank you for checking it out. Thank you for chatting with us. And if you want to join voice chat, you know, the way these guys have joined voice chat on the stream is by being volunteers with Project Liberal. So check out Project Liberal's Discord server, join up. Let us know that you want to help us out by volunteering to help create content or work behind the scenes or work on policy or any of the things we have plenty of volunteers doing. And maybe pop on a stream and join the conversation. But I appreciate all of you out there watching, and we'll do this again next week. I think we might just do Project Liberal Stellaris again next week. Seemed to be something people enjoyed, so this playthrough will pick up, and maybe we will figure out what to deal with these awful driven exterminator. I mean, this is we basically have purity MAGA here on our border, and we'll figure out what to do about that next week. Thank you again, Oren and